Welcome everyone to our webinar, a case study on securing file transfers in ZOS. My name is Jonathan Lewis. I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at SSH Communications Security. And with us today we have Tom Fitzgerald, who is a systems programming consultant who has implemented our file transfer solution. And the reason we're having this webinar, and it's of interest to many people in our audience, is file transfers within the ZOS environment often take place unencrypted. Traditional FTP is still being used, and this isn't just because people were wanting to do it, but because they have difficulty in migrating over to encrypted solutions for file transfers. So what this case study is about is a much simpler way to secure the file transfers in the ZOS environment. So why don't we get started? And so, Tom, can you introduce yourself briefly, and then we'll get into the meat of it.
Sure. My name is Tom Fitzpatrick. I've been, like Jonathan said, I've been an IBM systems programmer since probably, I'm going to say, early 90s. I kind of made the transition from applications into systems. I've worked for IT service providers, defense contracts for the Air Force, a marketing motivation company, manufacturing, and healthcare. And all these different industries all had IBM computers. So so I've had kind of exposure to a lot of different businesses.
Great. And so, Tom, can you tell us a bit about the customer in this particular case study?
Yes, this customer is a major manufacturer. They have global operations in several different countries. The major IT applications support vehicle sales, parts, warranty, manufacturing, distribution. The IT environment here includes IBM mainframes running ZOS, ZVM Linux, and assorted Unix and Windows distributed servers.
Great. And what was the challenge with respect to file transfers that you were finding it with your client?
Well, I think like most companies, we have had an audit back in June 2011. And the findings of that audit said that our mainframe file transfer jobs were not being secured to the new company standard. Specifically, if you did an IP trace, you could see the user IDs and passwords were being transmitted in the clear. And this was to any FTP jobs we had going from the mainframe, whether it was internal or to third parties over unsecured networks.
And something about the challenges and requirements for making that transition?
Yes, our first thing we looked at was to see, okay, let's implement IBM SFTP on the mainframe. A couple things we did when we were doing our investigation. We noticed that there was no common FTP procedure, like a JCL procedure, so that that if you just had to making changes, it'd just be to the proc. They actually, almost every job that was using FTP had like a program equal FTP step. We also, so all those would have to be changed individually. We also had, users that had many FTP jobs that were not run by a scheduler. So, I'm on the phone here. Keep it down. Okay, let me see here. We had many FTP jobs that were not run by a scheduler, so there wouldn't be a way to know who was changing what. Early on, we abandoned this effort because we weren't going to get any help from applications as far as resources to help change these jobs. And also with changes, we run risk with interrupting our production processes. So we needed an easier solution to do this.
So could you please describe the solution that you landed on?
Yes, we installed Tectia for ZOS on two mainframe ZOS LPARs. They use native FTP secured by SSH to send files between the systems. What this does is it allows you to use your existing FTP client, builds a SSH tunnel that we'll talk about a little later, and then from that point on, then you have a secure transfer. After we were able to see that this worked between two ZOS LPARs, we picked a Unix server and set up used FTP client again to set up the SSH tunnel and exchange files. We chose this because this was very easy. End user didn't have to do anything. We were doing all the work. We had no changes to any FTP jobs. We didn't have to train our applications programming staff. And one of the things we did that I liked in this was we configured a fallback mode within the product so that if it couldn't build a SSH tunnel for some reason, for instance, say maybe your remote site's SSH process was down or wasn't working for some reason, you could just do a normal FTP. We found this very flexible, and there would be no impact to our production environment.
Great.
Okay.
And could you describe the implementation a little bit further?
Yes. As I mentioned before, we were using or are using the FTP client, and that implementation with Tectia creates an SSH tunnel, and basically we just add a remote server to address to our TCP/IP SOCKS proxy file. Tectia SSH tunneling makes use of 3 ports, 20, 21, the traditional FTP client ports, and 22 that it builds the SSH tunnel over. You have to, one thing I like to point out here that's kind of important is even though you're ultimately doing a transmission SSH over port 22, you do have to have ports 20 and 21 available if you're traversing any firewalls, just to get your initial session set up. Okay, as far as time, I was able to encrypt the file transmissions between 5 ZOS LPARs within a day. The remote servers took a little longer because I'm working with different groups for the remote servers. Some were more cooperative than others, and also we had to you had firewall rules usually that you had to go through. Our project is still ongoing. We did complete what we needed to do to pass our company IT security audit. One thing I would recommend before going into this project is that you're familiar with IP packet tracing. Before and after IP packet trace is good for your auditors to show them that it's really encrypting a file transfer, and also for future troubleshooting.
and a few words about the outcome.
Yeah, the biggie was we passed our company IT Security Audit. We also were able to implement a solution without applications coding any changes. The flexible implementation allowed automatic fallback to regular FTP if there was a problem building the SSH tunnel. And our future plans are to convert from the SSH tunneling to using the SSH client. In that case, you would only need port 22, which is something that I've had a couple segments in the network ask me to do because they want to be able to turn off ports 20 and 21, for auditors.
And any closing comments before we move on to the wrap-up and questions?
Okay, I would like to say that the technical support from SSH was there when I needed either a configuration, clarification, or a software fix. And they were also good with hints, or I shouldn't say hints, but things that would help me out, making suggestions along the way. Installations and upgrades to the software are fairly simple, even if you aren't that familiar with Unix. And then probably one of the best things that came out of this is upon hearing about our success, other business units in the company have contacted me about using this solution. So it's always going to be part of a successful story.
Yeah, and I appreciate your sharing it with us. I should mention that the client has asked to remain anonymous because of the security implications of what we're talking about. But of course, the vital information is available. And what I'd like to do is just kind of wrap things up with our contact information. And at any time, you can just enter your questions into the chat window on your application, conferencing application, and we'll be glad to answer it. Or you can, of course, contact either Tom or myself after the webinar with any questions or requests for information. So here's our Tom Fitzpatrick's information is right here, and he's kindly offered to be able to follow up with you if you have further questions. And once again, I'm Jonathan Lewis from SSH Communication Security, and you can reach me or at the email below, or you can click the contact link on our website at ssh.com. And so we are going to pause a moment for questions. Please just type them in. If there aren't any questions, we'll sign off. So thanks for listening, and let's just see if we've got anyone with a question. Okay, well, I think that wraps it up. Short and sweet, and thanks again for signing in, and thanks, Tom, for sharing your information and expertise. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.